The locker room door slammed shut, the metallic clang echoing like a gunshot in Blake's ears. He spun around, heart pounding, only to find himself staring at a bolted lock, trapped inside by the very men he called his brothers. Laughter, cruel and jagged, seeped through the walls, each jeer a blade slicing into his soul. Blake Andrews, 26, was no stranger to adversity. Growing up in a small, conservative town in rural Ohio, he learned early to hide who he was. But San Francisco was supposed to be different, a city of freedom, a place where he, a proud gay man and rookie police officer, could finally breathe. He joined the force 6 months ago, chasing a dream to protect and serve, to be part of something bigger. His chiseled features, emerald eyes, and athletic build turned heads. But it was his quiet determination that earned him a spot on the elite tactical unit. Or so he thought. The truth hit harder than any punch. His team didn't want him. Not because he wasn't good enough. It was the best shot in the unit, with instincts sharper than most veterans, but because of who he loved. Ethan Carter, a 25-year-old graphic designer with a smile that could light up the darkest corners of Blake's world, was the reason Blake's heart beat. But that love, whispered about in locker room gossip, had become a weapon against him. Faggot doesn't belong here, Officer Mike Torres had sneered earlier that day during training. The word wasn't new to Blake, but hearing it from a teammate, someone he'd trusted to have his back, burned deeper than he'd expected. The others, Jake, Ryan, and even Captain Heller, hadn't said a word. Their silence was louder than Torres' slur, a tacit agreement that Blake was an outsider. Now, locked in the precinct storage closet after a late shift, Blake's fists clenched. The air was thick with the smell of old gear and cleaning supplies. His phone, left in his locker, was useless. He pounded on the door, each thud a plea for release. But the laughter outside faded into footsteps walking away. They'd left him here, a cruel prank to teach him a lesson. His chest tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of betrayal. He was supposed to be one of them. Hours passed. The darkness pressed in, and Blake's mind wandered to Ethan. They'd met at a coffee shop in the Castro district. A chance encounter over spilled latte and nervous smiles. Ethan's blonde curls and easy laugh had pulled Blake in like a tide. Their first date, a hike in Muir Woods, had ended with a kiss under towering redwoods. A moment that felt like the world finally made sense. Ethan was his anchor, his reason to keep fighting. But how could he face him now? Humiliated and locked away like some criminal? The precinct was quiet when the door finally creaked open. Officer Sarah Nguyen, one of the few who'd never joined the taunts, stood there, her expression a mix of pity and anger. "Blake, I'm so sorry," she whispered, helping him out. "Torres and the others, they're assholes. I overheard them bragging about it in the break room." Blake's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you stop them?" "I tried," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I told Heller, but he just shrugged it off. Said it was team bonding. I'm reporting this." "Blake, this isn't right." He nodded, but his heart wasn't in it. Reporting it might mean paperwork, maybe a slap on the wrist for Torres, but it wouldn't change the culture. It wouldn't erase the whispers or the looks. As he grabbed his things and left the precinct, the San Francisco night air hit his face, cool and sharp. He needed Ethan. He needed home. Their apartment in the Mission District was small but warm, filled with Ethan's sketches and Blake's collection of vintage police badges. Ethan was waiting, his hazel eyes softening the moment he saw Blake. "Rough day?" he asked, pulling Blake into a hug. Blake buried his face in Ethan's shoulder, the scent of cedar and paint grounding him. "They locked me in a closet," he admitted, voice low. "My own team." Ethan pulled back, his face a storm of emotions. "What? Blake, that's assault. You have to report this." "And what? Get labeled a snitch? They already hate me for being gay. This'll just make it worse." Ethan's hands cupped Blake's face, firm but gentle. "You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out. Together." That night, as they lay in bed, Ethan's fingers tracing circles on Blake's back, a spark ignited in Blake's chest. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Ethan, for every kid like him who'd been told they didn't belong, for every person who'd been silenced. He didn't know how yet, but he would turn the tables. One bold act could change everything. The precinct buzzed with its usual chaos, phones ringing, officers shouting, the clatter of keyboards, but for Blake, it was a battlefield. Each glance from his teammates felt like a sniper's scope trained on him. The closet incident hadn't just bruised his pride, it had shattered his trust in the badge he wore. By morning, word had spread. Whispers followed Blake through the halls, some laced with mockery, others with uneasy sympathy. Sarah had filed a report, but Captain Heller called it a misunderstanding, urging Blake to let it go for the sake of team unity. The word stung, but Blake swallowed his anger, nodding like the good rookie he was expected to be. Inside, though, a plan was forming. He couldn't confront Torres directly, not yet. The man was a bully, but he was also a decorated officer with years of clout. Blake needed evidence, something undeniable that would force the department to act. He started small, keeping a journal of every slur, every shove, every accidental exclusion. Dates, times, witnesses, he documented it all. His neat handwriting a quiet act of defiance. At home, Ethan was his sanctuary. They'd cook together, Blake chopping vegetables while Ethan stirred sauces, their laughter filling the apartment. But even those moments were tinged with tension. Ethan noticed the way Blake's shoulders stayed rigid, the way his smiles didn't reach his eyes. "You're carrying too much," Ethan said one evening, setting down a glass of wine. "Talk to me," Blake sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I want to fight back, Ethan. But what if it cost me my job, my dream? Then you build a new dream," Ethan said fiercely. "You're more than a badge, Blake. You're the man who stood up to his drunk dad at 16 to protect his mom. You're the guy who ran into a burning car last month to save a kid. You don't need their approval to be a hero." Those words lit a fire in Blake. The next day, he approached Sarah. "I need your help," he said, voice low in the precinct parking lot. "I'm building a case. Not just for me, but for anyone else they've targeted." Sarah's eyes widened, but she nodded. "I'm in. I know a few others who've been harassed, women, minorities. They're scared, but they'll talk if you lead." Over the next few weeks, Blake became a quiet leader. He met with officers in secret, late-night coffee shops, empty park benches, listening to their stories. A female officer who'd been passed over for promotions. A black rookie mocked for his accent. A veteran who'd been ostracized for reporting misconduct. Each story was a thread in a tapestry of systemic failure, and Blake wove them together with care. But the pressure was mounting. Torres and his crew sensed something was off. They doubled down, accidentally spilling coffee on Blake's reports, assigning him the worst shifts, leaving him out of critical briefings. One night, during a high-stakes drug bust, Torres forgot to signal Blake, leaving him exposed in a dark alley. Blake's training saved him. He ducked behind a dumpster as bullets flew, but the message was clear: they wanted him gone. That night, he came home shaken, his hands trembling as he unlocked the door. Ethan was there, sketching at the kitchen table, his blonde curls catching the lamplight. Without a word, he pulled Blake into his arms. "You're okay," Ethan whispered, as if saying it could make it true. "I can't keep doing this," Blake admitted, voice cracking. "They're going to get me killed." Ethan's eyes burned with determination. "Then don't let them win. You're smarter than they are. Blake, use that." The next morning, Blake found a small recorder in his locker, left anonymously. A note taped to it read, "You're not alone." His heart raced as he tucked it into his pocket. Someone was watching his back. The question was, who? The recorder became Blake's lifeline. Tucked inside his uniform, it captured every venomous word, every veiled threat. Torres' voice, low and smug, admitting to the closet prank during a smoke break. Jake's casual slurs in the break room. Ryan's laughter as he recounted teaching the queer a lesson. Each recording was a brick in the wall Blake was building, but came at a cost. He was exhausted, his nerves frayed from constant vigilance. Sleep was a luxury, stolen in fits between nightmares of betrayal and gunfire. Ethan noticed the dark circles under Blake's eyes, the way he flinched at sudden noises. "You're killing yourself," Ethan said one night, his voice thick with worry. "This fight, it's eating you alive." "I can't stop," Blake replied, staring at the ceiling. "If I give up, they win. Not just over me, but over everyone else they'll hurt next." Ethan reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "Then let me help. I'm not a cop, but I'm not useless. I can organize. Spread the word. There's a community out there that'll stand with you." Blake hesitated. Involving Ethan meant exposing him to the same hate Blake faced. But the look in Ethan's eyes, fierce, unwavering, made the decision for him. "Okay," he said, "but you stay safe. Promise me." Ethan grinned, a spark of mischief in his hazel eyes. "Deal. But you owe me a date night when this is over." The plan grew. Ethan connected with local LGBTQ+ activists, sharing Blake's story anonymously. Posts on X began to circulate. Cryptic but powerful. "A gay cop in SFPD is fighting for justice. He needs your support." The response was overwhelming. Messages of solidarity. Offers to help. Even a lawyer who specialized in workplace discrimination. Blake felt a flicker of hope, but also fear. The spotlight was dangerous. At the precinct, tensions escalated. Torres cornered Blake in the gym, his bulk looming. "You think you're slick, Andrews? Snitching to win. Huh, keep it up, and you'll regret it." Blake met his gaze, heart pounding but voice steady. "I'm not scared of you, Mike," Torres smirked. "You should be." That night, Blake played the recordings for Sarah and 2 other officers who joined their cause. They listened in stunned silence as Torres' voice filled the room, admitting to harassment, to rigging assignments, to worse. "This is enough," Sarah said, her voice trembling with anger. "We take this to internal affairs." But Blake shook his head. "Not yet. We need more. Heller's in on it. He'll bury this unless it's airtight." The next day, a breakthrough came. The anonymous ally revealed themselves, Officer Daniel Kim, a quiet veteran who'd been watching from the sidelines. "I've seen this before," Daniel said, his voice heavy. "Good cops driven out because they didn't fit the mold. I'm done staying silent." Daniel had access to the precinct's security footage. He pulled tapes showing Torres and his crew tampering with Blake's gear, isolating him during briefings, even a moment they'd locked him in the closet. Combined with the recordings, it was damning. But Blake knew it still wasn't enough to change a system that protected its own. He needed something bigger, something public, something that would force the world to see. The idea came to Blake during a sleepless night, Ethan's steady breathing beside him. A public stand, not just a complaint, but a moment that would expose the truth to the world. San Francisco was hosting its annual Pride Parade in a week, a celebration of love and resilience. Blake could use it, not as a cop, but as a man fighting for his place in a broken system. He shared the plan with Ethan, Sarah, and Daniel over coffee at a diner far from the precinct. "I'm going to march in the parade," Blake said, "in uniform, and I'm going to speak about everything. The recordings, the footage, the harassment. I'll post it online, live, so they can't bury it." Sarah's eyes widened. "That's career suicide, Blake. They'll fire you." "Maybe," he admitted. "But if I don't, nothing changes. I'm done hiding." Ethan reached for his hand under the table. "I'm proud of you. And I'll be there, front row." The days leading up to Pride were a blur. Ethan worked with activists to amplify Blake's story, creating a hashtag, Justice for Blake. The X posts gained traction, drawing attention from local media. Blake spent hours with a lawyer, preparing for the fallout. He knew the risks: retaliation, blacklisting, even violence. But every time doubt crept in, Ethan's voice anchored him. "You're not alone." The morning of the parade, San Francisco was alive with color. Rainbows draped every street. Music pulsed through the air, and thousands gathered to celebrate. Blake stood in his police uniform, badge gleaming, heart racing. Ethan, in a vibrant purple shirt, stood beside him, holding a sign, "Love is stronger than hate." Sarah and Daniel were there too, out of uniform but unwavering. As the parade began, Blake felt the weight of every eye on him. He wasn't just a cop. He was a symbol, a gay man in a uniform that had betrayed him. The crowd's cheers were deafening, but so were the whispers from the sidelines, cops watching, some supportive, others glaring. Torres was there, his face a mask of rage. Blake stepped onto a makeshift stage at the parade's end, a microphone in hand. The crowd hushed. He took a breath, thinking of Ethan, of the kid he'd been, of every officer who'd been silenced. Then he spoke. "My name is Blake Andrews. I'm a gay police officer, and my team locked me in a closet for being who I am." His voice was steady, carrying over the crowd. He played the recordings, showed the footage on a screen behind him. Gasps rippled through the audience as Torres' voice echoed, as the closet door slammed on tape. Blake's story poured out, the slurs, the sabotage, the betrayal. But also the hope, the love, the fight for change. "I'm not here to tear down the police," he finished. "I'm here to make it better. For me, for you, for everyone who deserves a chance to serve without fear." The crowd erupted, cheers and tears mingling. Ethan rushed the stage, wrapping Blake in a hug that said everything words couldn't. But as Blake looked out, he saw Heller in the distance, his face unreadable. The fight wasn't over. The fallout was immediate. Blake's speech went viral, shared across X and picked up by national news. Justice for Blake trended for days, with thousands sharing their own stories of discrimination. The San Francisco Police Department was under a microscope, and Captain Heller had no choice but to act. Torres, Jake, and Ryan were suspended pending investigation. But Blake knew suspensions weren't justice. Not yet. The precinct became a war zone. Some officers rallied behind Blake, inspired by his courage. Others saw him as a traitor, their glares sharper than ever. Anonymous threats appeared in his locker, notes promising payback. Blake kept them all, adding them to his growing file. He wasn't backing down. Ethan became his rock, fielding media requests and organizing community support. Their apartment was filled with flowers and letters from strangers, each one a reminder that Blake's stand had sparked something bigger. But the pressure was crushing. Blake's dreams were haunted by Torres' smirk, by the sound of a locking door. Ethan noticed, pulling him close each night, whispering, "You're enough." Internal Affairs launched an investigation, but it moved slowly, bogged down by bureaucracy. Blake's lawyer pushed for transparency, demanding the department release the findings. Meanwhile, Blake was reassigned to desk duty, a clear attempt to silence him. He spent hours filing reports, his badge feeling heavier each day. Then came a break. A whistleblower from another precinct came forward, inspired by Blake's speech. They provided emails showing Heller had ignored complaints about Torres for years, protecting him to keep the team strong. The evidence was explosive, and the media pounced. Protests gathered outside the precinct, demanding accountability. Blake felt the tide turning, but it came at a cost. One night, as he and Ethan walked home from a late dinner, a car slowed beside them. A voice shouted a slur, and a bottle shattered at their feet. Blake instinctively shielded Ethan, his cop instincts kicking in. The car sped off, but the message was clear: they were targets. "I'm scared," Ethan admitted later, his voice small. "Not for me, but for you." Blake held him tightly. "I'm not stopping. They don't get to win." The next day, Blake met with a lawyer and a reporter from a major outlet. They planned a follow-up story, one that would include the new evidence and call for Heller's resignation. But Blake wanted more. He wanted reform. He proposed a training program, mandatory for all officers, focused on diversity and inclusion. The lawyer was skeptical, but the reporter was all in, promising to pitch it to city officials. As Pride Month ended, Blake and Ethan attended a community vigil. The crowd held candles, their light reflecting in Ethan's eyes. Blake spoke again, this time without a stage, just a man among his people. "We're not just fighting for me," he said. "We're fighting for a world where no one has to hide." The vigil ended with a kiss. Blake and Ethan wrapped in each other's arms, the crowd cheering. For the first time in months, Blake felt free. But he knew the real battle was just beginning. The investigation reached its climax in late summer. The whistleblower's emails, combined with Blake's recordings and footage, were undeniable. Heller resigned under pressure, and Torres, Jake, and Ryan faced termination. The department issued a public apology, but Blake knew words weren't enough. He pushed for systemic change, meeting with city council members to advocate for his training program. The program, named Serve with Pride, was approved after months of debate. Blake led the first session, standing before a room of skeptical officers. He shared his story, not just the pain, but the hope. "We're here to protect everyone," he said. "Not just the ones who look like us or love like us." By the end, a few officers clapped. It was a start. Life wasn't perfect. Blake still faced whispers, and some colleagues kept their distance. But others, like Sarah and Daniel, became his family. The precinct hired a new captain, a woman with a reputation for fairness, and Blake was reinstated to active duty. He wore his badge with pride, not for the department, but for the people he served. Ethan's role in the fight didn't go unnoticed. His designs for the Justice for Blake campaign won awards, and he started a nonprofit to support LGBTQ plus first responders. Their apartment became a hub for activists, filled with laughter and purpose. One night, as they stood on their balcony overlooking the city, Ethan slipped a ring onto Blake's finger. "Marry me," he said, his voice steady. "Let's build that new dream together." Blake's eyes glistened. "Yes," he whispered, pulling Ethan into a kiss that felt like a promise. The wedding was small, on that same San Francisco beach where they'd shared their first quiet moments. Blake wore his dress blues, Ethan a tailored suit, their hands intertwined as vows echoed over the waves. Sarah and Daniel stood as witnesses, the crowd a mix of cops, activists, and strangers who'd followed Blake's story. The sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and pink, a testament to their love. Blake's bold act, his speech at Pride, hadn't just turned the tables on his tormentors. It had sparked a movement. Across the country, officers came forward with their own stories, inspired by his courage. Departments began adopting his training program, and Blake became a reluctant hero, speaking at events and mentoring young cops. But the real victory was quieter. It was in the way Ethan's hand fit perfectly in his, in the laughter that filled their home, in the knowledge that they'd faced hate and won. Blake had been bullied, locked away, and betrayed, but he'd found his voice. And with it, he'd changed the world, one bold act at a time. As they danced under the stars, Blake whispered to Ethan, "This is what freedom feels like." And for the first time, he believed it.